Good afternoon and welcome to our February 16, 2023 meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Welcome all of you here today, especially staff and our visitors. Our meeting today will begin with an invocation, and it's from Stan Senf, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led today by Commissioner Woodbury. Let's all stand, please. I'm sorry, Commissioner Plyler. Ms. Woodbury's a bit late.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate you all continue this tradition of long-time standing. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me, allowing me this privilege. Let's pray.
Thank you for coming.
Our Father, we thank you for today. It's easy to be happy and thankful on a day such as today. Wow. So beautiful you've given us today. We thank you for this community. Lord, I thank you for this place where I've lived since 1971. I love it. I thank you. Thank you that you sustain our community. I thank you for the commissioners who have agreed to serve. I thank you for staff who serves them. I thank you for everyone in the room who has an interest today in what's going on. And Lord, we're here to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. We need your help. We pray for your guidance, wisdom from above to make the best decision, to make the right decisions. So God, I ask your presence in all that happens today, your presence in this room, and to fill this space. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For citizens who are interested in participating in the public session portion of the meeting today by phone, please call 336-422-1200. You will be placed on hold until the public session begins. Again, that number is 336-422-1200. Members of the audience who are interested in participating in the public session portion, please fill out a speaker card and return to our clerk. Thank you. The Audit Committee met today to review the annual audit. Daniel Gaudry of Cherry Bekaert is here to present his findings to the board. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As mentioned, we met with the Audit Committee earlier today and discussed the audit findings. So I'll go fairly quickly through this, but please feel free to stop me if you have any questions about anything we discuss. First, I just always like to recognize our team members here, myself as the Engagement Director, and Richard Hart as the Senior Manager, and Brooke Bishop, who was the Senior Associate who worked on most of the actual work to get this audit completed. Going right past the agenda, I go right into the results of our audit. We audit the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We do this all to form an opinion that the financial statement, reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We also could perform our audit in accordance with government auditing standards. We also issue two reports, one for federal dollars that the county has spent and one for state dollars that the county has spent related to Uniform Grant Guidance and the North Carolina State Single Audit Implementation Act. In terms of the financial statements in our Yellow Book or Government Auditing Standards report, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion and the highest level opinion that we can give under our auditing standards. In terms of our compliance audit, that is still in process of being completed and should be completed shortly. We did have 9 programs this year from federal and state dollars that needed to be tested. And there's one program that we're still finishing up and just finishing up a few last minute items on the other programs. We intend to issue an unmodified opinion on those reports, and if we issue anything different, we will notify you of that. This slide just talks about our required communications with you if we were to find anything that we consider to be a material weakness or a significant deficiency in internal controls, and also over compliance over internal controls. This one slide defines for you what a material weakness is, which is a material error could go undetected and not corrected in a timely manner, could be a material weakness in an internal control, whereas a significant deficiency is one less than a material weakness, but still important enough for us to communicate to you all. The two findings we have here identify the two material weaknesses we've identified. The first one has to do with unearned revenue, and it has to do with amounts that were recognized as revenue in the prior year in your pandemic response fund and another non-major funds. And this adjustment was really just to defer that revenue as a liability until the funds were spent. You had committed those funds for use in the prior year, but the commitment was not enough to release it as a revenue recognition. There are no issues with any cash receipts or cash disbursements or any of your cash handling policies with these funds. It's really just a pure technical accounting correction. The other material weakness we have here has to do with a federal program, the Low Income Housing Energy Assistance Program. We found no errors with eligibility determinations for those that received assistance under this program, but we did notice that there was not proper controls in place to make sure errors could go undetected. And so we wanted to, we present this as a material weakness so that they would correct this in the future so that though you didn't have any issues, no issues will come about because you have those controls in place. And the last one I have here is a significant deficiency, and this relates to a Medicaid program, which is a repeat comment from the previous year. We found one instance of an issue, but it did not result in any question costs or eligibility issues where the county would have to pay back any funds to the federal agencies. But we did find just issues again with controls. You do have controls in place. You do have a pretty good system of internal controls, but there were some instances where follow-up was not being done on when errors were found by the controls. And so we just want to recommend that that be shored up and improved in the next year. Next two slides we have here is corrected and uncorrected misstatements. So these are things we find as part of our audit that we require management to either post and adjust or pass on adjusting. The two items we have here all relate to the finding that I had given 2 slides previously, which was related to recognizing revenue too early in terms of not having the expenditures be incurred yet. And so that was $23.1 million related to mostly the American Rescue Plan Act, but also some emergency rental assistance. Again, not any issues with the spending of those monies and the receiving of those monies, but just the recognition of the revenue timely. And then the same thing down below is just current year revenues that were received in advance and not spent yet. It's not common for a lot of governments to receive money in advance. Usually it's reimbursement basis after you spent the money. With the unprecedented amount of money that has been out there with CARES Act and ARPA, this resulted in some advanced funding that the county had not received in the past. We had no uncorrected misstatements, so everything that we found was corrected or there was no other corrections that needed to be made. Your note 1 includes your significant accounting policies, which includes your new accounting pronouncements that have been implemented in the current year. And the one new accounting pronouncement was your GASB 87 leases, which was the implementation of recording all leases, whether they're operating or capital in nature, on your balance sheet as a right to use asset and a lease liability. You also record as a lessor a lease receivable where you are collecting money from others. We noted no issues with related party transactions, no issue, nothing that came to our attention outside of what was already presented to us by management. There was no significant or unusual transactions, so that's something that is outside the normal course of business that might be significant due to nature, timing, or size. We found nothing that we need to make you aware of that we consider to be significant or unusual. Management and in developing their annual comprehensive financial report use a number of estimates to come up with financial statement line items, one of which is your allowance for doubtful accounts of your accounts receivable, your depreciation expense for your assets, your pension, other post-employment benefit liabilities related to the actuarial determinations, and the lease liabilities and receivables that were recorded this year due to that new implementation of the new standard. In all cases, we look at what management used to determine those estimates were appropriate, made sure those estimates were also consistent with what management had been doing in the previous years. We found no issues with that. The financial statements were clear, neutral, and consistent. No significant note disclosures to note here. Non-attest. So a test is an audit service. So this is a non-audit service. We do provide a non-audit service for preparation of data collection form. This is the form that we submit to the federal government when we complete our compliance audit that lets them disseminate the report to all the applicable federal agencies that would need to review your report. There's no issue there with that. You have competent individuals within your finance department who can review and take responsibility for those services. From an independence standpoint, we are independent of the county, and we remained independent throughout this engagement. There were no difficulties encountered about this engagement, no disagreements with management. We had one auditor consultation, so this is one internal consultation within our own firm, and we're required to communicate those to you, and that's just for the restatement that I specified earlier. We're required to consult internally. And then a management representation letter was provided to us dated January 30th for the issuance of the financial statements, and we will receive one for the single audit once that is complete. There were no management consultations, no other findings or issues, no fraud or illegal acts that we became aware of as a part of our engagement, and no going concern to note. The next few things are just other things that are included in the annual comprehensive financial report that we do not provide an opinion on, a full opinion on. The required supplementary information, which is your management discussion analysis, and the pension schedules that follow the notes. We do not provide any opinion on those schedules. For the supplementary information, which is your schedules of non-major funds and budget schedules in the back, we provide an in relation to opinion that nothing was inconsistent in the back with the front schedules, but we do not provide a full opinion on that. And your introductory, which is the beginning of your annual comprehensive financial report, and the statistical section at the very end, we read the information, but we do not provide any opinion or perform any audit procedures over that. This is just a number of the GASBs that are going to be applicable to the county in the coming year. 96 will probably have an impact, but management is still evaluating the impact of that as they finish this year. This is local government commission at the state level requires us to look at different ratios that show the health of a county or city. We are only actually required to present it when you have a negative ratio, but we did want to present it in the good light as well, that you do have good ratios here. The threshold is 16%. You're at 36% this year, and it has been rising over the last couple of years. I will note that this might look a little higher than you're used to seeing when you get information from finance. That's because the LGC requires us to include committed and restricted balances, whereas you're probably really looking at what is really truly available to be spent, which would not really consist of committed or restricted balances normally. For the other things that we're looking at, making sure that you've collected property taxes exceeded your budget, or at least we're not under 3% of your budget, which you did. You had positive general fund balance, an effective pre-audit process, no late debt service payments or covenant issues, no statutory violations, and you did have the one material weakness we noted earlier related to your financial statements and the submission of the audit, which is after the date of December 1st, 2022, that will need to be addressed and identified and written in a letter to the local government commission, which finance will provide that letter, and then will need to be signed by at least half of the board. And so that needs to be done within 60 days of this meeting. With that, I'll open up if anyone has any questions.
If you don't mind just a moment waiting there.
Sure.
Commissioner Linville is chair of our audit committee. I wanted to see if he had any comments or whatnot before I asked the commissioners.
Thank you. auditor covered it very well. I think the most important thing is he pointed out that it was a unmodified audit opinion, the highest it can be. And in my opinion, to get to that point, that's a lot of work that finance people does, as well as employees all across the county that follows all of the rules and guidelines that accounting calls for. So thank all the people who's involved in that. And I know the finance people works closely with the auditors as they're doing their work. So that's all I have, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Commissioners, do you all have any questions? Well,
I do have a comment.
okay.
Thank you. Vice Chairman. Daniel, I wanted to say thank you for the comprehensive report today. But as Commissioner Linville has already stated, the health of our community in this county comes on the back of our finance department. And thank you, Terry, for being at the forefront of that. Thank you, Dudley, as well, for being the leader here as well. So thank you. And it's good that you, sometimes we always listen to the negative, but it's good to know that we have that good foot and balance out there. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your report.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joshua Swift, our Public Health Director, will give a COVID-19 update. Oh, you're not Joshua. I'm sorry, I did not realize Joshua was not here.
I'm not Joshua. I don't have a bow tie,
No, you don't.
and I'm a little shorter. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Pretty. I am one of the Assistant Health Directors here today on behalf of Joshua Swift, who has been in Raleigh for the past 2 days. I am the Assistant Director over Community Health Services Division within Public Health. I'm here to give you the Forsyth County COVID updates. And as you can see, we are happy to report that cases have decreased in the county over the last 14 days by 2%. Some unfortunate news that I'm to report is that our deaths have increased slightly, 33%. We've had 6 deaths in the county, and we currently have 24 Forsyth County residents that are hospitalized. This graph, I think you've seen this many times over the course of several years, but we are, this just shows the trend of decline in our current cases. I think you're also familiar with this graph, but this is a projective COVID cases in North Carolina. You can see we're in the middle of February right now. We're kind of at the end of a downslope and looking to kind of plateau off here in the next coming months. Our community is currently in a medium risk level as defined by the CDC. And just a reminder that what that means is individuals that are at high risk should continue to have discussions with their physician regarding their need for masking. I'd like to remind you all and the community that the Forsyth County Public Health Department continues to provide COVID-19 vaccine to our community on a walk-in basis at our public health site, Monday through Friday. There hasn't been a long line for those vaccines here lately, so those that are needing a booster, please consider stopping by. Wanted to just review some thoughts on future planning around COVID. It's important to note that the federal emergency is ending May 11th of this year. We've got state vendor-supported testing that will be coming to an end at the end of March. We currently have a good bit of at-home test kits. Currently, 500 to 700 have been distributed to all of the 10 library locations, the Public Health Department, and the Government Center. And we anticipate having enough on hand for the next 12 months, which is a good thing because those test kits are no longer going to be provided for free. As Mr. Swift has mentioned previously, we have asked or requested to be part of a pilot program to have a testing kiosk available to the community where community members can go and receive those test kits free of charge. And then lastly, an important thing to recognize is that vaccine commercialization will be occurring in June of this year of 23, which means that the federal government will no longer be providing free vaccine. And that is it for the update. Are there any questions?
Okay, do we have questions? Commissioner Bessie?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the update. Do you happen to have any data regarding what strains are predominating locally or in the state? And do you have any information regarding whether there have been recent new strains of concern that we should anticipate?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me currently. I can absolutely get that for you. We do have our communicable disease department that does keep track of what strains are out there and what is being seen, kind of future planning. So I'd be happy to get those and share those with you.
All right, thank you. I ask because it appears we've, at least with the current strains, we've passed from the pandemic into an endemic stage, but that's not necessarily guaranteed for future.
Right, right. It behaves very similarly to the flu where just these new strains of the disease are forming.
Thank you.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Thank you. Thank you for being here in Joshua's absence. So I have a bit of heartburn in terms of the deaths and the hospitalizations. And I'm just thinking, so this is just a suggestion, that maybe we start to look at those area codes again, get back to that type of data, so that we can kind of, maybe we have a lot of product out here spread through the libraries, but maybe we can have a more cohesive plan where we're bringing it back to those areas where those individuals are being more affected. So those are just some suggestions that I'm thinking through.
Okay. Good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. We always look forward to hearing your report. And please share with all your coworkers how much we appreciate what public health does for our community.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the meeting of February 2nd, 2023. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel.
Madam Vice Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. Commissioner Woodbury has joined the meeting virtually. Will you please request votes by roll call?
Okay. We will now have a vote, and it will be by roll call. Thank you for changing that name.
Vice Chair Wisenhunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bessie, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Plyler.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards for the public session?
Madam Vice Chair, we don't have any cards, but we have 2 callers on the line.
2 callers. Let me remind you that this is a public session, and we would need you to state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes each. Please have the first one, Madam.
You are now available. Thank you. Thank you. That's a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, do we have any calls?
Ma'am, will you turn the volume down on your device?
And I surely don't. Yes, cards, but we have 2 callers.
Thank you. Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
Cheryl Harry, 4524 Princess Drive.
Thank you.
Winston-Salem.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
I am Director of Tricultural Arts, and our signature event is the annual Juneteenth celebration. I'd like to say good afternoon to Chair Martin, Vice Chair Wiesenhunt, and all Forsyth County Commissioners. I'm calling to thank this commission for its commemorations of our local Black American history and to express the need for an African American Heritage Center. African Americans have made an indelible impact in Forsyth County dating back to the 1700s, while Old Salem and historic Bethabara have been outstanding stewards of the early history of blacks. There is a major imperative that we have an African American Heritage Center that can build upon that work of these institutions. A center to expand that narrative into the 20th century would not only benefit our community, but will also provide an additional revenue stream for tourism, travel, and the local hospitality sector. We do invite you to visit our website, triculturalarts.org, to see more of the work that we are doing to uplift our rich African American history. Thank you.
You are now available. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session Line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Zuri Sweat, and my address is 2127 Cherrywood Drive.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Martin, Vice Chair Wiesenhunt, and all of the other Forsyth County Commissioners. My name is Zuri Sweat, and I'm your reigning inaugural Queen Juneteenth 2022 of the Tricultural Arts Queen Juneteenth Scholarship Pageant, which was hosted in June of last year. I attend West Forsyth High School, and I'm so glad to be speaking to you all today. My title is very important because I've had the pleasure of meeting amazing, influential women and men of Winston-Salem, and I've been afforded many fantastic appearance opportunities to further my love of the arts, diversify my network, and expand my social impact platform, and promote the Queen Juneteenth pageant and holiday. I am calling to express why Black History Month is important and to thank this commission for officially recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday that our county celebrates. I would like to share 3 local Black history facts and celebrate some of the history we are making locally in our county. The first person is actually someone I had the honor of sitting across from in his Off the Cuff podcast, Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough. Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough is the first African-American sheriff of Forsyth County. The second person is Dr. Shy Woodbury. She is the first African-American chair of the Forsyth County School Board. The third person is Commissioner Maisie Woodruff, who was the first African-American to be elected as a Forsyth County Commissioner. Thank you, Ms. Cheryl and Dr. Woodbury, for inviting me and allowing me to share this with you. I hope you all have a blessed day.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I'll turn the agenda over to you.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Wiesenhunt, and good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have some business items for consideration this afternoon. We have reviewed these in briefing sessions. Hopefully, we've answered all the questions that you've had, and so with that, I'll go ahead and dive into the agenda. We have a number of budget and finance items. Item 3 is an adoption of the 2022 County Capital Maintenance Two-Thirds Bond Capital Project Ordinance. It really has 3 parts. There's $4 million that are in Section A, $2 million for parks, and $2 million for general services. This is the regular routine capital that's performed every other year through these bond funds. Item B is the schools component of that, and that's $10,235,000. And then item C is the community colleges portion of that. It's $2.3 million. And these bonds will be issued later this fiscal year, so it would be sometime in May or June. And we'll hear a little bit more about this at the winter work session.
I have a motion.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plowler.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Could you do a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Wiesenhunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Very good. Agenda item 4 is an amendment to the 2016 Forsyth Technical Community College Capital Projects Ordinance. It aligns project cost, and so the item actually takes $32,500,000 out of reserve. These are bond funds that were issued in subsequent years. They are allocated to the Oak Grove campus at $11.5 million, to the Learning Commons at $18,198,839, and to the Transportation Center, the amount of $2,801,161.
Move approval.
Move approval by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Do we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Approved.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 5 is two parts. It's amendment to the 2022 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance, and item B is where you accept the transfer from that Capital Projects Ordinance into the general fund. Pretty simple item. It moves $6,300 to the general fund for the purchase of security cameras at the recycling centers.
Move approval.
Move approval by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner Linville. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, agenda item 6 has two parts. It's an amendment to the 2020 Motor Vehicles and Mobile Equipment Capital Replacement Projects Ordinance. There's an associated amendment to the 2022-23 General Fund budget to accept and appropriate transferred capital vehicle project funds to be used to purchase non-capitalized equipment to upfit emergency vehicles. This item does recognize $19,475 in insurance reimbursements and then transfers the balance of $143,283 to the general fund.
Move approval.
Approval by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
All right. Agenda item 7 has a number of parts. It's a resolution to create and staff a new animal services department for custody and care services at Forsyth County Animal Shelter. Obviously, that was accomplished with a contractual item previously, so this sets it back up as a cost center. So there are several parts. You got an amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 budget to appropriate fund balance to create and staff the department. You've got an amendment to the 2022-23 budget to change the authorized numbers of sheriff's office positions due to a transfer of positions to this new call center. Then you got a resolution ratifying the amendment to the Forsyth County pay plan so that we can identify those positions. It establishes a half-year budget in the amount of $664,345.
Move approval of all changes.
Move approval by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Are there questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Ms. Watts, could you summarize any significant changes from the original language of the resolution to the copy that's before us today?
Yeah, let me look at Deputy Manager Damon Sanders Pratt.
Sure. So the only change to this is the number of positions is the same, the composition is the same, the dollar amount's the same. The shelter manager title is now Assistant Director of Shelter Care, which basically allows that person to sign documents and act in the place of the shelter director when they're not present. And then one rescue adoption coordinator is an office assistant, which will also do adoptions, but there'll be more office tasks than just the adoptions coordinator.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's the same.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? We have a motion to approve. Could you call a roll, please?
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 8 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 budget. Ordinance that appropriates $121,850 of reserved behavioral health services fund balance for repairs and uptake to the Sturmer House property there at Sturmer Park Circle off University Drive. The plans are here to provide a 24-hour residential facility for qualifying youth in DSS custody.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plowler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Are there questions or comments? We have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
So unanimous vote. Thank you.
Agenda item 9 is a resolution accepting funds from and authorizing an agreement with the North Carolina Department of Commerce for a water and sewer infrastructure project at Tanglewood Business Park. You've got an associated amendment to the 2017 Tanglewood Business Park Capital Project Ordinance that appropriate funds from the North Carolina Department of Commerce. This recognizes $2.4 million in state funds for infrastructure that was granted in a previous year legislative session by the General Assembly.
Move approval.
Move approval by Commissioner Plowler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Are there questions or comments? Not, ma'am, could you have a roll call?
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 10 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 budget ordinance that appropriates North Carolina Department of Commerce 1NC grant funds to Nellopac Corporation, to the Department of Community and Economic Development. These are essentially pass-through funds that were granted by the state in the amount of $72,000, and the county is going to act as the administrative agent for these dollars.
Move approval.
Approval by Commissioner Plowler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Questions or comments? We have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
We have a number of items related to ARPA, and so we grouped these in the agenda accordingly. Item 11 is a resolution approving execution of an agreement with Smart Start of Forsyth County to support the pre-K priority coalition in Forsyth County with American Rescue Act plans. You've got an associated amendment to the Pandemic Response Fund Special Revenue Fund that's related to that. My understanding is we were waiting on some documents that needed to be done, completed from Smart Start, and at the advice of the attorney, I believe we need to ask that this be continued to the next cycle.
Okay,
Gordon.
could I, is that true?
Gordon, you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Manager. The chairman has some specific requests relating to testing, and I believe the parties are very close to ironing that out. But as you know, the chairman could not be here today, and so I believe it would be best to give him a chance to review those changes, make sure they're correct and in line with what he was requesting. And so my suggestion would be to continue this to the next meeting, the March 2nd meeting. And meanwhile, the contract could be entered into contract control and could start making its way through there, so it wouldn't really delay the project.
Move we continue this to the next meeting.
Motion to continue by Commissioner Plowler.
Yes, ma'am.
You made the motion, correct?
Move we continue the item to the next meeting.
Yes. Motion was made by Commissioner Plowler, second by Commissioner Linville. Are there questions or comments?
I do have a question, Vice Chairman. Gordon, if you, I see the folks from Smart Start are here, so relative to the questions that Dr. Martin, Commissioner Martin had at the time, those individuals, are you clear in terms of what's needed, and did you have any additional information for us today? If you can come, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenise Highsmith. I'm the Senior Director for Pre-K Services Initiatives, excuse me. And as a group, we decided that we would like to implement, in addition to Teaching Strategies Go, which is already written into the project, we would like to enhance this process with iReady, which is a system that's already being utilized by Forsyth County schools. And it's used within the schools to assess children kindergarten through second grade, and right before they go into third grade, where there's the third grade testing. So we're looking to utilize the same system just for our pre-K or 4-year-old children that would test their knowledge over the course of time period 1, which would be a benchmark, then mid-year, and then towards the end.
Move we add what the lady said to my motion.
We have a motion to continue this item until our next cycle, which is March 2nd. Are there further comments or questions? Not, could we have a roll call, please? Thank you, ma'am.
Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie.
Aye.
Commissioner Linville. Commissioner McDaniel. Commissioner Plyler.
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote to continue.
Okay. Agenda item 12 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with ABC of North Carolina Child Development Center to purchase a new HVAC system and resurface facility playground with American Rescue Plan Act funds. You've got an associated budget ordinance amendment that would appropriate $601,898 for that purpose.
Move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Are there questions or comments? Could we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie.
Aye.
Commissioner Linville. Commissioner McDaniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler.
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 13 is a resolution approving execution of agreement with Piedmont Triad Regional Council to conduct research to address the crisis in IDD housing and wraparound services using the American Rescue Plan Act funds. This has got an associated budget ordinance amendment which appropriated $150,000 for this purpose. This was actually previously approved with the PTRC Development Corporation. This essentially shifts it to the PTRC organization, so it's more of an entity swap here.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie.
Aye.
Commissioner Linville.
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler.
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 14 is a resolution approving execution of an agreement with Hospice and Palliative Care Center doing business as Trellis Supportive Care to replace the HVAC system and add air filtration technologies to transition to a non-congregate setting for patients with American Rescue Plan Act funds. This you got an associated budget ordinance amendment. It would appropriate $1 million for this purpose.
Move approval.
Approval by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bessie. Are there questions or comments? Could we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie.
Aye.
Commissioner Linville.
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler.
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
It's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 15 is a resolution approving execution of an agreement with Children's Home Society of North Carolina to open a Child First program in Forsyth County with the American Rescue Plan Act funds. You've got an associated budget ordinance amendment which would appropriate $568,450 for this purpose.
Move approval.
Approval by Commissioner Plyler, second by Commissioner Linville. Questions or comments? We have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie.
Aye.
Commissioner Linville.
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler.
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
It's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 16 is a resolution approving execution of an agreement with Horizons Residential Care Center for homes for clients with intellectual and developmental disabilities with American Rescue Plan Act funds. You've got an associated budget ordinance amendment which will appropriate $1.9 million. What it will purchase is essentially the construction of 2 freestanding residential units housing 6 patients each at that campus.
Move approval.
Move approval by Commissioner Plaller,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Questions or comments? We'll have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
All right, you got 3 contractual matters. Item 17 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a contract for the purchase of equipment to upfit Ford Interceptors. After supply chain issues, we finally took delivery on a number of vehicles, replacement vehicles that are much needed. We did outsource the upfitting of them for patrol purposes, and we are recommending a contract with West Chatham Warning Devices Incorporated in the amount of $94,842.09.
Move approval.
Approval by Commissioner Plaller,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Questions or comments? We'll have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 18 is a resolution authorizing procurement of air pollution monitoring equipment from Teledyne API under an exception to the bidding laws codified in the Forsyth County Federal Procurement Policy section as listed for sole source purposes. This would purchase 2 PM monitors, which I presume are particulate matter monitors, not to exceed $85,000.
Move approval.
Second.
Move approval by Commissioner Plaller and a second by Commissioner Bessie. Are there questions or comments? We have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Agenda item 19 is a resolution authorizing execution of a Microsoft subscription and software services agreement from MIS. This would purchase that off-state contract in the amount of $621,700.50. It is a 3-year term.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plaller,
Second.
second by Commissioner Linville. Questions, comments? Do we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
We have 2 property matters for consideration. Item 20 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and Partners Health Management for lease of county-owned property located at 741 Highland Avenue. This would lease 1,200 square feet in the DSS building to allow the upfit of space over at the Highland Avenue Center.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plaller,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Questions? We have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
All right, and then the last item, item 21, is a resolution authorizing execution of a revised contract to purchase real property located at 7212 Doral Drive. What this essentially does to an already approved contract is add potentially three 30 days extension to that with some non-refundable deposits to go with that.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Plaller,
Second.
second by Commissioner Linville. Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Wizenhunt,
Aye.
Commissioner Bessie,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville,
Aye.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Plyler,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Righty.
Well, if it appeared that we ran through this agenda rather quickly and very little conversation for the folks who are watching, please know that we brief these items 2 times before we vote on them. We have 2 weeks to ask questions and get further information. So please know that we have done our homework on these items. And I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Let's just take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll come right back to do our briefing for our second, or for our next meeting. Thank you. After a work session, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Watts.
Okay, very, very good. Madam Clerk, are you going to pull up the agenda? Okay, so pull that up. While she's doing that, I'll just mention the discussion item was really just the winter work session. We've, talked with board members about what you wanted to see and what we wanted to try to get accomplished in that session, and it is coming together very nicely. Kyle Haney has been working with Chris Murphy and the Utility Commission folks and the Greater Winston Inc. folks around, I'm going to kind of call it sort of a future Forsyth County kind of look. It's land use and it's economic development, and sort of thematically what we're looking at is, if government doesn't do anything, this community will continue to grow however it grows, right? I mean, it'll do whatever it's whatever capitalism and that system makes happen. And so what we're trying to do is really present information to you about, sort of the policy question about when, where, how should local government get involved in that to make things more robust and us all more prosperous and healthy and everything else in the future. And so we're going to take a fair amount of time and hear from all of those players around how they view the challenges around economic development, and hopefully give you enough information to really have a good discussion around, policies around extensions of infrastructure, policies around recruitment, policies around land use planning as we enter the comprehensive planning process that Chris Murphy talked about last week. And so we've got that as an item. We have a presentation around the emergency services arena. COVID had some significant impacts on that because we were part of that Allied Health Hospital response system. And so we're going to talk about EMS, and we're going to talk about some data around EMS, how it's changing, how scope of practice with paramedics and the hospital systems have impacted us, what statistics look like unit hour utilization, what's our staffing model been, how many units, how many trucks should we have, and all those kinds of things. And so it will be a good discussion, really that kind of heads into budget, but also we'll have kind of a policy level discussion about that system and how we can make sure and take care of our folks from an emergency perspective. And then finally, we'll do our normal budget financial overview. The goal there is to give you some information about, obviously we heard today about how we closed out last year, where we are kind of in the current year and where we see things, and then talk a little bit about budget drivers going into next year, challenges that we know we're going to be facing no matter what, and I'll talk a little bit about debt issuance and kind of where we stand with all that. And so that's what we hope. Obviously, there'll be time in that session. This is really your session, so we are very, very cognizant that we don't want to be doing all the talk, and so that there really is time there for you to talk about things that are important to you as we go into budget and go into next year. This is really the time where you say, what do things look like a year and a half from now? And so anyway, hopefully it'll be a really good session. We're going to do it start at 9 o'clock, and we're going to be on the 4th floor. Okay, so we'll be in, down on the 4th floor, kind of closer quarters where you can be a little closer to each other and talk straight, directly to each other down there. And so, and next Thursday we'll do that, and then we'll come in and do a full briefing. So we'll be back here at 2 o'clock next Thursday after the work session. So that's that. Any questions or comments, anything we need to do in preparation for that next Thursday?
I think we're good.
I have one question.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about my lateness. I was coming back in from work from Gifford County Schools, but I did have a question about the agreement with a company as it relates to the economic development project. Do we know the name of the company, or that will come to us at the winter work session?
That goes into the briefing. We're getting ready to start the briefing now. The manager was just talking about the work session next Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that is the,
Start the briefing now.
yeah, I was going to say, that is the very first item on this agenda that we've got. Kyle, do you want to? Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Absolutely. So this is a item that would be before you in the next meeting, 2 weeks. This is an item that the board has reviewed in closed session previously. The practice of this board has been generally that for competitive reasons, we don't release the name of the company until the actual day of the public hearing and the vote, and I will give a full presentation detailing all of that information on that day. In general, though, this, if approved, this would authorize a economic development incentive for a manufacturer of specialty textiles to expand its operations within the county. If they selected here as the place they would expand, the capital investment would be $41,710,000 in building machinery and equipment, and creating 59 new full-time positions with an average wage of $64,200 plus benefits here in Forsyth County. And it would authorize an incentive of $563,338 that would be paid out over a 5-year period. As always, we receive the tax dollars, the jobs are created before we make those payments, and that would be approximately 50% of the taxes we expected to be generated over those 5-year period.
Questions for Kyle?
Just
Bessie?
very briefly, I just want to make sure. My understanding is that the county counts the additional tax revenue anticipated based on property tax only.
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, I'll just briefly review the items. These are items that we're finalizing and we'll present in detail next Thursday. And I hope that I match up with the agenda, because I wrote my notes on this one that I printed off about 10 o'clock. And then there was one at my place. Did it change between 10 and 2? So,
No, the briefing agenda has remained the same.
okay, all right. I just, when I saw one at my place, I wondered if I was looking at the same thing. It was formatted a little bit differently, but I think that was the printer. So anyway, got minutes of the meeting we just had, so we'll get those ready to go. It looks like we've got 3 budget finance items. You've got an amendment to the 22 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance, which would appropriate funds for the photovoltaic, solar, and other projects at county parks facilities. So what you'll hear from folks about that is we actually set aside some PAYGO funds for those projects that specifically had both the reduced operating cost kind of feature, but also that were environmentally sensitive, and there was $100,000 for that purpose. So you'll hear a little bit about that. You'll also hear those projects when they come back to you, if they are over $50,000. So you might hear some of those. Item 4 is an amendment to the 2022 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance appropriating funds for the electrification of the fleet project. That's Commissioner Linville's favorite project to give me a hard time about. And we're going to be talking about electric tractors, I guess, at some point in time, but that would just essentially appropriate that, and we will be bringing back those.
I hadn't seen any updated reports, right?
Right, well, we got to get the money set aside.
Recently, but I keep a watch on it so I can let you know. But I know you probably already know before I do.
Or not necessarily, but anyway, so we'll get that done. Then agenda item 5 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 budget that appropriates funds for detention staffing contract extension. It'll give you a chance to hear a little bit from Sheriff's Department about that contract. That was a contract with P&G Security Guard Incorporated. We, as a response to making sure and trying to help out with officer safety, we actually had a security guard contract which put warm bodies in the detention center to work alongside our detention officers. They are limited in what they can do, but given the level of staffing in that facility, that made some sense, and it continues to make sense, and it continues to be able to be paid because of the staffing shortage. So idea is that as staffing went up, we could let that contract trail off, and you would, you wouldn't have any additional cost. So again, you'll hear a lot more from the Sheriff's Department on that. ARPA funding, it looks like we've got 4 items with ARPA dollars. You'll hear detailed about those. It's Old Salem's Hidden Town project, funding for that. an agreement with Legal Aid of North Carolina to support an economic justice assistance initiative to stabilize home ownership opportunities, an agreement with Community Care Center of Forsyth County Incorporated to hire 2 full-time staff for behavioral health services, and then an agreement with the Shalom Project for the Flourish program to provide mental health counseling with American Rescue Plan Act funds. So 4 of those are teed up, and then we will also add the one with Smart Start that we just tabled. We've got 6 contract items. There's some approvals that we need in order to be able to execute some documents related to the opioid settlement, and so Gordon will be able to review that with you. We've got the purchase of contraceptive devices and pharmaceuticals with Title IX Family Planning Services funding under Medicaid 340B pricing that you'll hear from Public Health on. You've got a contract with Forsyth County and Atrium for a corporate wellness service. This is essentially our wellness program. We contract that whole program out to an agency. We went out for bid on that. Really looked hard at our 2 local hospitals because they obviously had an advantage in that. They both provide those corporate wellness services, but it is really the strength of our wellness program. So we do have a recommendation, and HR will submit that recommendation to you. We're going to move some projects forward, which are exciting. We've got a contract with Dreambuilt Incorporated for the Fleet Addition project. That is the 5 bays that would be constructed there at the fleet maintenance side of the Linville Center. And basically, we would be constructing that for the schools, Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, to move their White Fleet operations over there to work alongside of our fleet staff. It makes a ton of sense. You fund both a fleet operation for county government, and you fund a fleet operation for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, and so having them co-located makes a heck of a lot of sense. There's not a prohibition against shared equipment and all those kinds of things. So we're excited about that. So you'll hear some detail on that. In sort of a similar vein, we have an agreement with the City of Winston-Salem to take the 911 center that's currently in their public safety center and actually co-locate it beside of our 911 center. And so in order to do that, we've got to make some amendments, some improvements, actually moving the sheriff up off the 2nd floor and into the 3rd floor of the building. So he'll get new digs out of it. And then we're going to be able to expand the emergency management function, because they are in pretty tight space and frankly need a little bit of a room to move in there. And so you'll hear all about that. If anybody wants to go over there and see that space next week prior to the meeting, just so you can see exactly what we're talking about, and Damon can get with folks in general services and actually show you what's going to be done and actually show you the space they're going into. It's pretty cool, and so you'll be able to see that. And then finally, it's been a project actually since 2016. It was an original bond project for some trails out at Horizons. It's kind of the last group of projects. There was about $2 million set aside for Horizons Park. We've got a number of different projects, but one of those is a trail system. But if you remember, we actually sold the timber on that in a very strategic fashion, required the timber guys to basically cut in part of those trail system for the logging roads when they pull the timber out. And so we got a little bit ahead of that, and now we're going to be talking about finishing that project out and going ahead and putting, and it's a significant trails on. Commissioner Bessie, you're going to like this as a runners, but it's 6 to 8 miles of trails actually. So it's a nice, it's more than I can do. So it's a nice project. And then you got a couple of tax matters and then some reports, but good group of items to move things forward next Thursday. So.
Next week we will get more information on each of these items. But if there's anything that you want to ask today or ask of the staff to provide for you next week, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. But all of these items will be discussed in depth next week. Are there questions or comments on
Just
any?
made one comment. I want to make. Next Thursday, we begin at 9 o'clock sharp.
Yes, sir.
That's the winter workshop.
Yes, sir.
Then at 2 o'clock, we begin our commissioners' meeting.
Correct.
Good, okay.
Madam Vice Chair, I just wanted to, and I hope I'm not out of order, but I wasn't here when Zuri Sweat came on, and I just wanted to recognize her as one of our students in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools and her leadership and just her activism in our community. She did win a $20,000 scholarship to attend a UNCF school. Howard University is her school of choice, and we just appreciate her leadership again and her willingness to come on and just share that with the community. Thank you for your...
Yeah, sure. Anything further? I will accept an adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.